Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unwrap, the Pick and Roll podcast. Adam Webster with you. And today I'm one-on-one with the co-owner and executive director of Hoops Capital, Matt Denholm. Matt, thanks so much for being here. Firstly, I know it's a really busy week for you and your organization, so thanks for taking the time.
No, thanks very much for having me, Adam. Really excited to have a chat. And look, there's nothing better than talking basketball, so I'm keen to get involved.
Well, your week is very full, and we'll get to free agency eventually as part of this show, of course. I'm sure there's a lot of Kings and Flames fans that are watching and listening in, just trying to understand what might happen from here. But I want to start with the seasons that just culminated and finalized for both of your organizations, the Kings and the Flames. It was, similar levels in terms of final placings, but different feelings in terms of expectation versus reality. And we'll start with the Kings. I think bringing on Brian Goorjian, the legendary, one of the greatest coaches of all time, if not the greatest coach of all time, the talent that you had, local and international, there were really high expectations, as I feel like there are every year for the Kings. Do you guys feel the weight of expectation behind not just the jersey and the history, but the names that you brought on board? It's kind of an all-in move to get such an accomplished coach and such an accomplished roster, bringing back Xavier Cooks and the players that you did. Did you guys feel that?
Look, absolutely. Look, I think that, for us in Sydney and in Sydney in particular, it's an important thing to always be aiming to win. I think that the Kings, we won back-to-back championships a couple of years ago, and so for us at the starting point of the season and in the off season, we're looking to build a championship. We want to engage our fans. We keep growing our crowds every year, and for us, having a winning product and an entertaining product on the floor is a really important thing. And so, after the back of last season, we went and got Brian. We had a list of free agents that we were aiming for and things like that, and bringing Bull Quoll in as well as Xavier was a super exciting move for us, and bringing Brian really exciting point. But it was not just a 1 year thing. We signed these guys to multiple year deals, and it's one of those things where it does take a bit of time to build things, and we saw all the expectations, and we relished those expectations, and we want to be in front of the bright lights of playing in that big arena out of Kudos Bank Arena. And so, look, it was an exciting start to the season.
Let's talk about the on-court product, because you guys had a really high-powered team at different parts of this season. I think at different other parts of the season, you were disappointing compared to the expectation that you'd set to start the year. What areas have you identified at a high level that you need to improve, or that went wrong or didn't go as planned last season that you would have expected to maybe add to your championship sort of resume?
I think that the thing with the NBL and I think that the thing that the play-in has really done is it's really expanded the competitive nature of all spots. Like the fact that the top six now make it through. We went down to the end of the season and it was still Brisbane, New Zealand were still in the hunt for those play-in spots. Shows how competitive the league really is. I think. There are definitely things that we took out of this season that we were really happy with. There's certain, things like, the way that Kelly Leopepe exploded onto the scene this year as a first year player. I think he had a phenomenal season. We're looking forward to what Xavier and Bull are going to continue in going into next season. So I thought that we saw some really exciting things. The thing that I think doesn't get talked about is our defense and how our guys locked in, bought into Brian's system and really got behind it. And there were games that every game that we had was really competitive. I think that off the top of my head, we only had one game where we missed, where we were outdone by more than 10 points. We lost to a Jack White three in the corner. One of the games, I think all the games with Melbourne United, they were within single digits. And we were within the last minute. So some disappointing results that where we ended up finishing and things like that, and not where we wanted to be. But I think of some of the highs. I think that some of the games where we were picked against, where we played against Southeast down at the State Basketball Centre, excellent. You know, people were sort of saying that we were going to get rolled as they were rolling. We came out, put a great performance on the floor in front of their fans, and took that win off them. And you know, it's those kind of things. It was sort of beating Tassie in the Pink Hoops game where we had you know 16,000 people, and it was a grit and determination about the team that I really like to see. And I think those are the kind of things that we'll expect to see going forward.
A couple of positives I want to talk to you about. Firstly, Guat Noi, and how incredible he was across the year. I was lucky enough to be at that Pink Hoops game where he was scintillating Tasmania Jack jumpers in a very, very strong jovial mood afterwards, might I add. He rides his performances, Guat Noi, and he was so happy after that. And it's great to see a guy that has been building for the last few years with Darwin, with Cairns, get so many more opportunities and so many minutes and take full advantage of that. And it's clear that he had Brian Goorjian's trust, you know, at different points of the year. And then for the rest of the season, how important was it to have a guy that could just come off the bench and be a microwave like that? And what did you see from Kuat across the year?
Quat was huge for us this year. I mean, obviously he's been in our organisation for the last couple of years. He loves playing in front of the crowds. Like the thing that, you know, the lights turn on and Guat Noi shows up. It's, you know, I think there's nothing better than watching Quat hit a three. Celebrates with the crowd. He's about all of the right things. It's you know that you're going to get his best effort on the floor, and you know couldn't say anything higher about what he's brought to the team this year. Obviously, winning the six man of the year, I think was big. Was a big achievement for him. He was our club MVP, and you know he's been a great role model in the community for us. You know, there's you ask Quat to do something, it's with a smile on his face, and he's great with the fans. He's really interacted with our members, with our fans, and you're always seeing Quat sort of signing autographs and with his trademark headband on and stuff like that. It's a joy to watch basketball.
And that's got to be so important to have that quality in a guy in your market, in particular, in every market, of course. But when you're competing with so many other teams across the year, and when you're trying to gain a really good foothold in the Sydney community, to have a guy that spends time with the fans and signs autographs, I've seen it at a few of them, you know, always take the time. And it's just vital for the growth of your team and for the next generation of fans coming through to have someone to look up to and someone to enjoy the presence of, right?
100%. I mean, we did a pre-season trip to Newcastle, Quat's hometown, at the start of the year, and there was a great, you know, there was so many kids coming up to him. There were so many stories that he could tell about those days in Newcastle, and then. As you said, it's for us we're involved in this to continue to grow the sport of basketball, to continue to give back to the community in Sydney, and to continue to put that entertaining product on the floor. And guys like Quat are huge in that regard.
The other guy I want to ask you about is a guy that this is going to kind of sound counterintuitive, but we hope isn't a king next season, and that's Alex Tui. Because he has really strong aspirations to get into the NBA and made a leap this season that I think surprised some, probably not people around your club and close to you that see the work that Alex puts in. He was the very first guest on this podcast back at the start of 2024 and walked away from that conversation knowing that the young man has a great head on his shoulders and obviously has great people guiding him along the way as well. What growth did you see from Alex, not just as a professional, but as a human over the last 12 to 18 months that he's been in the Kings program? And, you know, what do you see for him moving forward?
I think with Alex, I mean, the first thing, even when we saw him at the back of the off season, was actually, again, we want to talk about growth. He grew as a person. You know, he was big. He was bigger. He was, you know, he looked tall. He felt taller. So, you know, I think that he grew last off season as well. And you know, as somebody like him, when you talk to him, you forget how young he actually is, and what kind of a career he's got ahead of him. I think that with guys like Alex, the spot of where Australian basketball is in a really great spot. We've loved having him as part of our organisation over the last 2 years. And again, it's exactly what we've sort of aimed at, what we're wanting to do as an organisation. We want these guys to take that next step to the NBA. We, as much as we want to have people as Sydney Kings for their whole careers and things like that. When there's that level of talent and things like that, going to the NBA is the ultimate dream for so many people, and to be able to play that part in the start of his journey, and for him to put that trust in us as an organisation to help get him there. He's done so much of the work, and anything we could have done to help in that regard, I hope has gone well. But no, I'm very much looking forward to seeing how the rest of his career plays out, and I don't think that there's any level of expectation that we see him with the Sydney Kings next year. He will firmly be in the NBA. He's a first-round talent in my regard.
And there's such a strong incentive for both sides of that equation to make that happen, because for Alex, of course, it's his dream. But for you and your organization, it is an incredible recruiting tool to be able to point to the guys that you've been able to help move across to the NBA, because as great as the NBL is, and as much as we want the NBL to succeed, there are levels to this. And I think everyone is really clear about what those levels are and where those aspirations are and where the money is and the talent is, et cetera. And it is in the NBA. So we want to see people realizing their dreams. And it's great for you, for guys that have that aspiration.
100%. Look, it's a great thing for us from a recruiting standpoint, and it's something that we very much want to be able to do if we can. I think that I look back on the past over the last few years of people that we've sent to the US. It sort of started with Didi Lozada a few years ago. Came through the program. We sent him back to the NBA. It's guys like Xavier Cooks sending off the back of 2 championships, sending him to the Washington Wizards. Jalen Galloway getting a 2-way contract with the Milwaukee Bucks, and the excitement of this, and then to potentially add Alex in the next step there is something that we're excited by. We want guys or girls to take the next step. I'll give Fleur McIntyre a shout out as well. Obviously, off the back of being an assistant coach with us, she got a job with the WNBA Phoenix Mercury in their front office, and so those linkages and everything we can do to continue to connect the game to the NBA and WNBA are an incredible part of the future for us.
Shout out to Brian Bowen too, who is a former King that went across to my Indiana Pacers. So the connection
Absolutely.
I want to move to things that could have gone better. I think a lot of pundits, and there was a lot of feedback around playmaking this past season. How did you see that part of the game, that part of the team, and what lessons did you learn from, I guess, the construction, the depth chart, and how you can then parlay that into bigger and better things next season?
Yeah, look, I think that, as with any roster construction, and I think that when you're looking back at the season and you're not finishing with the championship, I think there's always going to be things that you can look back and go, what could we have done better? What could have happened, and things like that. I think obviously there were levels across the team that they could have played better. I think that the media definitely crowned us the championships at the start of the season, and so you live with those expectations at the start of it all, and everything like that. I think that when we constructed the roster, we knew that we were going to be long and rangy, and it was sort of very much done in mind that the style of play that we were going to be having was fast and getting up and down. But there were guys that were coming through that we were fitting in. We had a bit of a roster changeover coming into next year, and so as the pieces fill out and things like that, sometimes the best idea that you've got in your head of this is exactly how this is going to work don't necessarily play out. I think that what if we talk about playmaking, I think that Jalen Adams had an amazing season in statistical wise, and the way that we flowed with him on the floor was great. And obviously, he had some injuries at the start of the season that sort of scuttled a little bit of that. But I think once we got rolling, we had that win streak going through sort of early January. I touched on that state basketball game, and we were rolling at that period of time. And it just didn't quite get over the hump at the back end of the year, whereas things. So there's definitely lessons in that for us to learn from, going into next season.
Let's move on to the Flames, and I think it was such an up and down WNBL season. I remember recording a podcast very early on in the season when the Flames were struggling very early, and then all of a sudden they started to come up, they started to rise, and they managed to get into a semi-final series. Now, you ran into the eventual champions, and that is always going to be tough given how strong the Spirit were. But with the leaders you had, we're lucky enough to have Kayla George on the show last year, which was just a delightful experience to talk to Kayla. I can't speak highly enough about her and her performances on this show and others. But how proud were you of the Flames and how they played across the season and how they were able to drag themselves up into a semi-final series?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the Flames, the thing that they showed so much heart throughout the season. Yep. It really was a season that we got. There were a lot of injuries, setbacks throughout the season, and things like that. And I guess some of the changeover coming into the season. We had the plan to bring back Didi Richards from the year before. She had an injury, unfortunately. So right sort of on the eve of the season, we were having a change there. Obviously, really excitingly for Loz Nicholson, who was our MVP the year before and runner-up MVP voting. She's pregnant, which really excitingly for her, and so she wasn't with us last season. And then we had so many injuries throughout the season of what we do. But the thing that the girls showed was heart throughout the year. It was very much that next woman up approach. People stepped up, did different things. We brought, Talia Tupaya, made her return for the Flames at the middle of the season. She was a great addition to us. But absolutely, look, I mean, I think Kayla really led the team and was a revelation for us. Shanice Swain, a big shout out to her. She had a huge year. She's still a really young talent. I think that what she will be in the WNBL for a long time she's the hype factor. Like the way she plays basketball, it gets people out of their seats. Like, she can hit a shot from anywhere in the gym. Exciting with the ball. She's somebody who really is really going to take us places. And again, lost her to an injury in the semi-final game one, and then so it was just one of those years for us where even we had injuries across the board, but the performance to make the semi-finals was huge. Some of those games against Canberra were battle tested. Winning in overtime to secure fourth spot was a highlight. And even that game too, where we came in and we had we had as I said, Talia, who came in the middle of the season, Carla Pittman, who was a DP at the start of the season, elevated to a roster spot beforehand. We're playing with a really young team, and take that lead on Bendigo, really looking strong, and gave them every that was an amazing environment, and it was our biggest crowd of the year as well. So to finally make the semi-finals after a 7-year wait was super exciting, and that is something we're looking forward to building on going into next season.
Speaking of building, it's a brand new day for the WNBL. Just from a Flames perspective, what are you most excited about in terms of what is coming and what Flames fans can expect, and how you can use the tremendous platform that you've built in Sydney with those doubleheaders, with those great crowds to build even further on this club and this team?
100%. Look, the Sydney Flames brand has been around for a long period of time, but I think that the linkages back with the Kings that I guess sort of started happening about 4 years ago as we were able to do the double headers. We're really seeing that we're really seeing that people are really bought into the progress that the girls have been making over the last couple of years. I think that, Guy Malloy has built a really impressive culture within the organisation of the Flames and the things that they can do. I think that, we see them in the doubleheaders. We're seeing people come more and more earlier and earlier in the games there to go to the doubleheaders. We're seeing crowds come out to the Key Centre now as we're starting to put a winning and exciting program on the floor. I think that, with whatever new potential marketing comes about with any new platforms and things like that, the girls can really sort of showcase on and things like that. I think that'll be a big step forward, where we've always known that the quality on the floor is tremendous and is world class. And we see girls all the time, every year go between the WNBL and the WNBA, and giving that opportunity to, the thing I guess we can do with the Flames that is different from the Kings is they can play in the WNBL season and then go to the WNBA. It's what Shanice is doing this year. Obviously, she's been picked up by the LA Sparks, and to continue to do those kind of things and showcase people in our league here, and then go across to the WNBA and the growth that league is having. I think it really says good things about what the potential is for the Flames in particular on that.
And vice versa, it's such a tremendous opportunity to try and get even more great talent down here into the WBL, given the swap of the seasons. I've often said on this show that the WNBL has possibly the most engaging and delightful athletes in Australian sport. And I think if there can be a platform to bring that to the surface so that people can really engage with these athletes and understand who they are as people, and they're all fantastic people and make for great conversations. So I feel like there's some really fantastic content that can come of the next phase of WNBL basketball.
100%. I think that, from what's happening around and the product on the floor, it's good basketball to watch. It's nothing better. The league's been going for 40 years now, and so we know that it's a sport that is continuing to grow. Obviously, the success for the Opals over nearly 30 years now. It's incredible to think the 2000 Olympics, but winning that first bronze at Atlanta, and then backing it up on Sydney and leading into Brisbane. I think it's the exciting thing about basketball is that it gets to be shown on that global stage, and the ability for Australian basketball to continue to showcase itself there, I think, is a great thing.
Let's switch gears to Andrew Bogut. So Andrew Bogut announced as assistant coach for NBL 26 for the Kings. Matt, how did that come together? And what need are you addressing by bringing on Andrew Bogut onto the gorgeous staff?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, this was something that, obviously Gorge and Bogues have had a really long relationship together. They've known each other for a long period of time. I think it goes back to when Andrew was I think of the story is when he was sort of 17 around and coming to training with the Victoria Titans when Gorge was the coach down there, and so they've known each other for such a long period of time. And I think that I think that Andrew's sort of said that he was really excited about potentially looking at coaching and what that would mean. And obviously his strong relationship with us as an organisation, he's a co-owner, and the strong relationship with Gorge is a key starting point. I think that for them and for the future of Andrew as a coach, I think is, he wanted to do it somewhere that he was comfortable with. Doing it with a coach like Gorge, who is known for so long and things like that, was all part of the journey.
There's few better people to learn from than Brian Gorge and Andrew Bogut. I guess excited to see how Andrew can work with your bigs as well. Jason Spurgeon springs to mind in particular. You've got young bigs on the roster. You've got elite bigs on the roster. Kelly LePepe, you mentioned earlier in the episode, had such a tremendous start before injury sort of derailed his season a bit. So Do you see a really great opportunity there for your bigs to get so much better under one of the greatest bigs this country's ever seen?
Well, absolutely. I think it's the bigs. It's the players in general. I think that the unique perspective that Andrew brings to the coaching staff and things like that is a former number one pick. He's one of the best basketball minds on the court. Obviously, you know, you see the highlights of what he did when he was with Milwaukee, when he was with Golden State, and the runs they had, and you still hear the admiration that his teammates talked about him from, and things like that. So I think for us, it's bringing one of those great basketball minds. We've got Gorge as our head coach, and that's a super important part. But bringing Andrew into Gorge's staff as one of those great basketball minds, and it's a really exciting proposition, and it's the ability for him to relate to players and going and talking through them what they've done, his journey, and all of those kind of things. But you know, when you can bring an elite basketball mind onto your staff, and with somebody with the relationship history that he has with Gorge together, I think that's almost a no-brainer. And it was an exciting thing when Gorge and Andrew brought the proposition to us.
So you've got a great coaching staff and the makings of a great young coach. You've got fantastic local talent that's retained across to next season with the aforementioned Xavier Cooks, Tyler Robertson with another year in his legs, Kawhi Noy we've mentioned, Kelly LePepe, Jalen Galloway healthy, Bull Quall. You've the envy of the league from a local talent perspective. What goes into the next 48 hours, 3 weeks, 2 months of recruitment? Firstly, I want to start high level. What are your and Gorge's and your organization's recruitment philosophies and values, and what do you covet in players?
Yeah, I mean, and I think that the exciting thing for us from a macro perspective is that, unlike other years and things like that, is we've got a core group there that's had a year together, work through some, certain challenges and things like that. We know people knowing what works well together and things like that, it can only help it to flourish more. So the fact that we're bringing so many key guys back from last year's team into next year's, I think is a key component, and a key component for growth. And that's I don't think that can be underestimated. I think that sort of building blocks for that. I mean, having Xavier there, having Bull already signed up and things like that. It does mean that we're not after a huge amount of people to add on to the team. And I think that for us it's we're after culture pieces. Culture pieces are a really big thing, and it's something that we talk around the organization a lot. Is that talent is a super important piece, but you want to have great culture guys around to continue to build that up and flow together and things like that. It really is. We have one of the key things, and we have a no dickheads policy. It very much is it's the mantra around the club. Is
Paul Roos back in the day.
It's and Paul Roos and Gorge have known each other a long time, but it really much is it's a philosophy that rings true around the organization. It's something that we very much value, and we're wanting guys who are wanting to be here, making the club better, working towards the club's goals and things like that. I think a piece like Sean Bruce is so integral around that, and the culture that he's been around here now for so many seasons, and he really does help to bring that out within the team and things like that. And so that's what we're excited about from a macro level.
As we've mentioned playmaking earlier and mentioned Jalen Adams not currently contracted heading into the season. So there is a hole at that point guard, that playmaking spot. That's also a leadership position. Are you looking for a leader? Are you looking for someone that can complement Gorge, Andrew Bogut, Xavier, those existing leaders that you've had that have won championships, that have, done it all, won MVPs, won medals in the league? Are you looking for someone to really take charge of the ball on the court?
I think it's a key component around any team, particularly around us. But I guess if you look around the league this year, if we look at our final series that just happened, obviously the Hawks had a great couple of guards there. Will Hickey had a great series. Trey Kell was great for them. Tyler Harvey, and on Melbourne, Shea Ely, Delhi had a great year and things like that. I think that if you look, Bryce Cotton's obviously is one. What is it? He's on the tails of Gazy with his 5 MVPs and things like that. It's great guards are a super important part. Jalen Adams won the MVP for us while he was here. Derek Walton won the Finals MVP when he was here for us. So great guard play is a super important part of any team. So.
Just about mentioned there as a free agent.
Look, it's one of those years. It's look, we love guys who've been around the NBL. We love guys who are high level playmakers, and those are important pieces. And look, people are free agents. We've got to have a look and see who's available and put the best pieces in front of our team. I think that's got to be key. I think that everybody knows how important that point guard is, and so we're going to be looking at all kind of options, both domestically and from an import level of what that might look like. And again, I think we're looking for some of our young guys to take a step up as well.
Haven't got any Matthews on the roster as it stands right now, funnily enough. Matt. Look, it's been widely reported, and we'll talk around this to the respect that it needs. It's been widely reported that there are players like Matthew Dellavedova that have been given permission to meet with teams and discuss potential deals, potential fits. I don't want to ask about specific meetings that you've had and conversations, but what I do want to understand is that when you meet with a player, what are you both selling them on, and what are you looking for from them in terms of a commitment, in terms of their values, in terms of what they want to get out of the situation of being a Sydney King? Obviously, championships, everyone will say that, they want to win, but what beyond championships are the things that you're, discussing and looking for?
Absolutely, and I think that everybody's going to say championships. That's the easy answer. But if we're stopping there, then we're missing a conversation piece there that needs to be had. For us, it really is. It's that alignment piece. We want to make sure that there's a gelling piece between our players, between our front office. Like for us, being involved within basketball, the importance of building within the community, continue to grow the sport of basketball. We want guys around the organisation who want to do that, and whether it's sort of growing the game of basketball here, whether it's growing as a person for them, it's we like to know about guys' interests outside of basketball as well. If there's anything that we can put them in the place to continue to grow as people, that's a super important part, and I guess finding ways to put guys in the best positions to succeed. That's sort of the key component for us as a recruitment tool. So it's that culture piece. If somebody doesn't align with where we want to be as an organisation, you're only going to lead to friction and unhappy, us unhappy as an organisation, the player unhappy as a player. And so, I think it's being as transparent as we can be as possible. Obviously, Chris Poncrass does a great job helping to put the pieces in mind. Luke Longley is our special advisor as well. So we've got guys looking at great basketball talent, but the fit is a super important part there.
You've got an incredibly impressive organisation at your disposal, Matt, that you've built. Last question from me: free agent philosophy. Are you we need to get it done and we need to get it done quickly, or are you more of we need to sit back, we might go to summer league, we might have some conversations over there and scout some more talent, or is it a little bit of a mixture of both? You've got your big ticket items that you're trying to potentially get done straight away, and then you can probably, particularly in the import market, sit back, understand where the dominoes fall, because sometimes you have to wait to see who gets a contract, who doesn't, who's free overseas, who's not, and head over to Vegas and avoid the tables. No, look, I think it's it almost depends. It almost depends. I think for us, having somebody like Xavier and
and Bull as our marquee Australians are a really important part. I think it all depends on who's available. So we're open to if the right piece, and I think that is the more important piece. If we find the right piece early, then we want to jump on that and make sure that we're getting that done. Because if you miss somebody that you think could be great for you just because you were waiting, that's what we want to avoid. And so we're being proactive in this search, and as we try and do every year, we're trying to be proactive and identifying players. Obviously, there's free agency opening now. There's college is still going on. There'll be some great Australians that are playing college basketball and things like that. So we're looking at all options, and I don't want us to sound too much like a non-answer, because I think it's an important the thing that is the most important thing for us is getting the right piece, and if we get the right piece, then we're all in sync.
Matt Denholm, thank you so much for joining me today on Unwrapped. It's been great to chat. All the very best with free agency, with the Kings and Flames and Hoops Capital and every thing that's going to happen over the next 12 months. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Adam. It was great to have a conversation with you, and I look forward to touching base again.